The Witch's Shadow. In the heart of an ancient, secluded forest, a place shrouded in eerie legends and whispered tales, there lived a woman named Eliza. She was not like the other residents of the nearby town. While they steered clear of the forest, fearing its mysterious disappearances, Eliza was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. She was a curious local historian with an insatiable thirst for knowledge, especially when it came to the enigmatic old woman rumored to be a witch. The forest itself was a labyrinth of gnarled trees and tangled vines, the air thick with a sense of impending doom. Eliza's research had led her deep into its heart, in search of answers about the witch. She believed that uncovering the truth about the legend would cement her status as the town's foremost historian. One moonless night, as Eliza combed through ancient manuscripts by the dim light of her lantern, she heard a soft, ghostly whisper. It was barely audible, like the sighing of the wind through the trees. She shivered, but curiosity got the better of her. She followed the voice deeper into the forest, her lantern casting eerie shadows on the twisted branches. As she ventured further, the temperature plummeted suddenly, and her breath hung in the air like a frozen mist. Eliza felt a growing unease, as if unseen eyes were watching her every move. The whispers grew louder, echoing all around her, making her heart race. She could almost make out the words, fragments of a chilling incantation. Then it happened. A shadow, darker than the night itself, swept over her. Eliza gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. The temperature dropped even further, and she could see her breath turning into a white plume of vapor. She stumbled backward, her lantern flickering and nearly extinguishing. Panic set in as the shadow loomed closer, and she scrambled to relight the lantern. With trembling hands, she managed to revive the flickering flame. The shadow retreated, but Eliza was left shaken and terrified. She knew then that the legend of the witch's deadly shadow was no mere superstition. It was real, and it was far more malevolent than she had ever imagined. Determined to unravel the mystery, Eliza's research led her to the enigmatic old woman who was rumored to be the witch. The townsfolk spoke of her in hushed tones, sharing tales of her peculiar behavior and strange abilities. Eliza tracked down the woman's isolated cottage, nestled deep within the heart of the forest. The cottage was an eerie sight, covered in ivy and surrounded by gnarled trees. As Eliza approached, she noticed a chilling silence that hung heavy in the air. She knocked on the weathered door, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing the enigmatic old woman. She had piercing, coal-black eyes that seemed to pierce Eliza's soul. Her wrinkled face held a certain wisdom, and her voice was a haunting whisper as she invited Eliza inside. Eliza cautiously stepped into the dimly lit cottage, her lantern casting eerie, dancing shadows on the walls. She explained her quest to uncover the truth about the witch's shadow, and the old woman's eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity. "You seek knowledge that is better left untouched, my dear," the old woman warned, her voice dripping with a mix of sympathy and foreboding. But Eliza was undeterred. She believed that confronting the old woman was the key to unraveling the mystery that had plagued the forest for centuries. As night fell once again, Eliza found herself back in the forest, this time accompanied by the old woman. They walked deeper into the tangled woods, the ghostly whispers growing louder with each step. The temperature plummeted, and Eliza knew that the witch's shadow was drawing near. Suddenly, the forest seemed to come alive. The trees twisted and contorted, their branches forming grotesque shapes. Eliza's lantern flickered wildly, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the ground. And then she saw it, the terrifying shadow, darker than the night, looming over them. Eliza's heart raced as the shadow closed in, but the old woman stood her ground. With a whispered incantation, she conjured a swirling vortex of light that pushed back the malevolent darkness. The shadow recoiled, retreating into the depths of the forest. The old woman turned to Eliza, her eyes filled with ancient wisdom. "You have seen the true power of the witch's shadow," she said. "But remember, knowledge can be a curse as well as a blessing. Some secrets are meant to remain hidden." Eliza nodded, her curiosity tempered by the chilling encounter. She realized that she had delved too deep into the unknown, and the consequences could have been dire. She thanked the old woman and left the forest, vowing to share her cautionary tale with the townsfolk. As she returned to the safety of the town, Eliza couldn't help but wonder about the enigmatic old woman and the power she possessed. The legend of the witch's shadow would continue to haunt the forest, but Eliza had learned a valuable lesson about the danger of delving too deep into the unknown. The ancient, secluded forest would forever hold its mysteries, and Eliza would carry the memory of that eerie encounter with the witch's shadow with her, a constant reminder that some secrets were best left untouched. The Cursed Village. In a forgotten corner of the world, shrouded in dense fog and surrounded by decrepit buildings, there lay a small village that time seemed to have forgotten. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, and the village itself was a place of unsettling tranquility. This was where Thomas, a skeptical journalist, found himself on a fateful assignment to investigate the village's secret to eternal youth. Thomas had heard tales of the village residents, who were strangely ageless. They never seemed to grow old, and their youthful appearances defied the natural order of things. Skepticism fueled his curiosity, and he was determined to uncover the truth behind their seemingly impossible youth. As he arrived in the village, the fog clung to him like a sinister shroud. The buildings, though ancient and decaying, held a certain unsettling charm. Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that there was a darkness lurking beneath the surface. His investigation led him to the heart of the village, where the residents greeted him with polite smiles that never reached their eyes. Thomas noticed something peculiar. The village was devoid of mirrors. Not a single reflective surface could be found, and he wondered if this was somehow connected to the secret of eternal youth. Late one night, as Thomas delved deeper into his investigation, he stumbled upon an old, forgotten tome in the village's abandoned library. The tome spoke of a dark pact made centuries ago with a witch who dwelled in the nearby woods. The villagers, desperate to escape the ravages of time, had traded their souls for eternal youth. In return, they were bound to the village, never allowed to leave its boundaries. The more Thomas read, the more he realized the grim truth. The villagers' ageless appearances were the result of a cursed bargain, and they were prisoners in their own seemingly idyllic existence. It was then that he noticed a passage in the tome that spoke of mirrors, how they could reveal the true age of the villagers. Determined to uncover the full extent of the curse, Thomas scoured the village for mirrors. In a hidden chamber beneath one of the ancient buildings, he discovered a room filled with mirrors, each one reflecting the villagers as they truly were, withered and aged, their once youthful features now distorted by time. As the realization dawned on him, Thomas could feel a cold chill creeping up his spine. He knew he had uncovered a secret that was not meant to be discovered. Panic set in as he realized that the villagers would do anything to protect their curse. Desperate to escape the village and expose its dark secret, Thomas made a daring attempt to flee. But the village itself seemed to conspire against him. The fog thickened, and the buildings closed in, twisting and distorting like a labyrinth that defied logic. Time itself seemed to warp, and Thomas could feel the curse taking hold of him. His once youthful appearance began to wither, his skin sagging, and his hair graying. He was becoming one of the ageless, a prisoner of the village's curse. In his final moments of clarity, Thomas realized the true horror of the village. It wasn't just the fear of aging that had driven the villagers to make their cursed pact. It was the price of vanity, the desperate desire to cling to youth at any cost. As the fog enveloped him completely, Thomas could hear the whispers of the villagers, their voices filled with a hollow and empty joy. He had become one of them, trapped in a never-ending cycle of eternal youth and eternal despair. The cursed village remained hidden from the world, its secret preserved for centuries, a cautionary tale of the price one pays for the fear of aging and the pursuit of vanity. And as the fog thickened and the buildings decayed further, it continued to lure unsuspecting souls, offering them the illusion of eternal youth, only to ensnare them in its malevolent grip. The Witch's Apprentice. In the heart of a decrepit mansion, shrouded in shadows and filled with arcane books and artifacts, a dark tale unfolded. This was the dwelling of an old witch, a woman who sought an apprentice to pass on her ancient knowledge, and her chosen one was none other than Lily, a young woman with a hidden past. Lily had come to the mansion seeking refuge from a world that had shown her nothing but cruelty. She had no idea that her refuge would lead her down a path of darkness and despair. As she crossed the threshold into the mansion, she could feel a sinister energy that clung to the very walls. The old witch, with gnarled fingers and eyes as deep as the abyss, welcomed Lily into her eerie abode. She promised her power and knowledge beyond her wildest dreams. Lily, desperate for a chance to change her fate, agreed to become the witch's apprentice. The initiation into witchcraft was a harrowing experience. Lily found herself drawn into a world of rituals that sent shivers down her spine. She watched as the witch conjured dark forces and harnessed their power to bend the world to her will. She learned incantations that could manipulate minds and control the elements. But with each lesson, she could feel her innocence slipping away, replaced by a thirst for power and a hunger for knowledge that was insatiable. As the days turned into weeks, Lily began to uncover the witch's sinister plans. The old woman sought to unleash a malevolent force upon the world, a force that would bring chaos and destruction to all who stood in her way. Lily was torn between her loyalty to her mentor and the realization that she was complicit in a plot that would unleash untold horrors. The mansion itself seemed to conspire against Lily. Its dark corridors twisted and turned, leading her in endless circles. The walls closed in on her, suffocating her with their secrets. She could feel the mansion's malevolent presence, feeding off her fear and despair. One fateful night, as the witch conducted a ritual to summon the malevolent force, Lily saw her chance to escape. She knew that the witch's concentration would be focused on the ritual, and she could slip away unnoticed. With a heart pounding with fear, she crept through the mansion's labyrinthine halls, her footsteps barely making a sound. But just as she reached the front door, the old witch's voice echoed through the mansion, chilling Lily to her core. "You cannot escape, my dear apprentice," she hissed. "You are bound to me, body and soul." Lily felt an invisible force pulling her back, as if the very walls themselves were closing in around her. Desperation welled up inside her as she realized that the witch's power over her was absolute. She was trapped, and there was no way out. The days that followed were a living nightmare. Lily was forced to assist the witch in completing the ritual, her heart heavy with guilt and dread. She watched as the malevolent force was unleashed, a swirling maelstrom of darkness that consumed everything in its path. As the world around her crumbled, Lily's transformation was complete. She had become a pawn in the witch's game, a vessel for her dark desires. The corrupting influence of power and knowledge had consumed her, leaving only a shadow of the innocent young woman she had once been. The mansion, once a refuge, had become a prison, and Lily was its unwilling prisoner. She had learned too late the true price of her choices, and as the malevolent force continued to wreak havoc upon the world, she knew that there was no escaping the darkness that now enveloped her. In the end, the mansion stood as a sinister monument to the twisted mentorship of the old witch, a place where innocence was sacrificed for the pursuit of power, and where the boundaries between right and wrong had been forever blurred. The haunting melody. In a ghostly town where the memories of the living had long faded, a haunting melody played every night. The mournful notes echoed through the abandoned streets, carrying with them an air of melancholy that sent shivers down the spine. Among the few who remained, one man was inexplicably drawn to this eerie place: David, a musician with a tragic past. David had heard whispers of the town's spectral serenade, and he couldn't resist the allure of the haunting melody. It was as if the notes themselves called out to him, promising to reveal a long-buried truth. He arrived one moonless night, his heart heavy with grief and curiosity. As he walked the deserted streets, the melody grew louder, its mournful refrain filling the air. The sound seemed to emanate from an old, dilapidated mansion that stood at the town's center. David approached the mansion, and his breath caught in his throat as he saw her, the ghostly figure of a woman standing by the window, her pale face illuminated by the ethereal glow of the moon. The woman was always humming the haunting melody, her eyes distant and sorrowful. Her presence seemed to defy explanation, yet David felt an inexplicable connection to her. He couldn't help but wonder about her story and the role she played in the town's spectral symphony. Driven by a mixture of fascination and trepidation, David began his investigation into the melody's origin. He uncovered fragments of a dark legend. An old witch, accused of casting a curse on the town, had crafted the mournful tune as an eternal lament for her lost love. It was said that the melody's curse had trapped the souls of the town's residents, binding them to the spectral world. The encounters with the ghostly woman grew more frequent. She appeared to David in his dreams, her voice haunting his every waking moment. She seemed to beckon him, to draw him deeper into the town's tragic history. The more David learned, the more he felt the weight of unresolved grief that hung over the town like a shroud. The revelation of the melody's cursed nature sent shivers down David's spine. He realized that the ghostly town was a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred, and the lure of the supernatural threatened to consume him entirely. As David delved deeper into the town's history, he discovered that the only way to break the curse was to find the witch's lost love and reunite them in death. It was a task fraught with danger, as the curse guarded its secrets jealously, manifesting eerie, unexplainable phenomena to deter David from his quest. But David was determined to free the souls trapped in the town's spectral embrace. Night after night, he ventured into the mansion, where the ghostly woman awaited him. She guided him through the labyrinthine corridors, her humming melody a mournful companion to their journey. As David unearthed more clues about the lost love, he could feel the curse's grip tightening. The eerie phenomena grew more intense, with objects moving on their own and whispers in the dark that seemed to echo with the pain of 1,000 lost souls. Finally, after months of relentless searching, David discovered the resting place of the lost love, an unmarked grave in the town's long-forgotten cemetery. With the ghostly woman by his side, he unearthed the grave and revealed the remains of the witch's beloved. In a solemn ceremony beneath the haunting moonlight, David reunited the long-lost lovers, their spirits merging in a final, sorrowful embrace. The curse lifted, and the haunting melody that had plagued the town for centuries faded into silence. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the ghostly town began to slowly come to life. Its spectral residents found peace at last, and the memories of the living returned, filling the town with the warmth of life once more. David, having fulfilled his mission, stood amidst the now living town, his heart heavy with the weight of the past. The haunting melody had led him to a place of redemption and closure, but he couldn't help but wonder if the ghosts of his own past would ever find solace. The ghostly town had given him a glimpse into the power of unresolved grief and the allure of the supernatural. And as he turned away from its now vibrant streets, he knew that the haunting melody would forever echo in his heart, a haunting reminder of the thin line that separates the living from the dead. The Witch's Mirror. In a quaint old antique shop tucked away on a quiet street, Sarah, the shop owner, lived a life that was anything but ordinary. Her shop was a treasure trove of history, filled with relics from the past that whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. But it was one particular item that would change her life forever, an antique mirror with a history as mysterious as the depths of the night. One gloomy afternoon, a mysterious woman with dark, searching eyes entered the shop. She wore a long cloak that seemed to swallow the shadows, and her aura exuded an air of enigma. In her hands, she held the mirror, a stunning, ornate piece that seemed to beckon to Sarah. The woman spoke in hushed tones, her words cryptic and laden with a sense of foreboding. She claimed that the mirror had the power to reveal hidden truths, to show glimpses of the past and the secrets that lay buried within. Sarah, always drawn to the mystique of the unknown, couldn't resist the allure of the mirror. As the woman placed the mirror in the center of the shop, Sarah could feel a strange energy radiating from it, like an invisible current that pulsed through the air. The surface of the mirror seemed to ripple with a life of its own, reflecting the dimly lit shop in a way that made everything appear more sinister. Curiosity gnawed at Sarah's conscience, and that night, unable to resist the mirror's call, she gazed into its depths. Her reflection stared back at her, but it was not just her own image that she saw. Visions of a witch's past atrocities unfolded before her eyes, curses cast, lives ruined, and a darkness that consumed all who crossed her path. Sarah was shaken to her core, the images etched into her mind like scars. She couldn't tear her gaze away from the mirror, its power over her undeniable. The witch's malevolence seemed to seep into the very air, tainting everything around her. As days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself increasingly drawn to the mirror. It was as if a sinister force compelled her to look deeper, to unearth the hidden truths that it promised to reveal. But the mirror's visions grew darker, more unsettling, and reality began to blur with the reflections it showed. One fateful night, Sarah saw herself in the mirror, not as she appeared in the shop, but as a twisted, malevolent version of herself. Her reflection's eyes glinted with madness, and her hands reached out, as if to break through the glass and into Sarah's world. The mirror's power had begun to manipulate reality, and the line between the mirror's reflections and the real world had become dangerously thin. Terrified by what she had seen, Sarah tried to cover the mirror, to shield herself from its influence. But the mirror would not be ignored. Its whispers grew louder, its visions more tormenting. Sarah's grip on reality began to slip, and she found herself questioning her own sanity. The antique shop that had once been a haven of history and wonder now became a prison of despair. The mirror's influence over Sarah was absolute, and it showed no mercy. She was trapped in a nightmarish cycle of reflections and distortions, unable to escape the witch's malevolent gaze. Desperation drove Sarah to seek out the mysterious woman who had sold her the mirror, hoping to find answers and a way to break the mirror's curse. But the woman was nowhere to be found, her enigmatic presence as elusive as ever. In the end, Sarah was left with no choice but to confront the mirror head-on. She gazed into its depths one final time, her reflection twisted and grotesque. The mirror's power surged, threatening to consume her completely. With every ounce of strength left in her, Sarah shattered the mirror, its pieces scattering like fractured memories. The sinister force that had held her in its thrall was gone, but the price of unearthing hidden truths had been high. As Sarah stood amidst the shattered remnants of the mirror, she couldn't help but wonder if the witch's curse had truly been broken, or if its malevolence still lingered, waiting for a new vessel to reveal its dark secrets. The antique shop had become a place of nightmares, and the danger of unearthing hidden truths had been a lesson learned at a terrible cost. The Forest of Whispers. In the heart of a dense, whispering forest, where the trees seemed to come alive with secrets, an explorer named Alex embarked on a perilous journey. He was brave but naive, drawn to the mysteries of the wilderness like a moth to the flame. Little did he know that he was about to enter the domain of an ethereal witch who controlled the forest itself. The forest had an ominous aura, its ancient trees standing tall and imposing, their branches intertwined like gnarled fingers that reached out to the heavens. The rustling of leaves sounded like murmured secrets, and the wind whispered eerie, unintelligible words. It was a place where nature's unpredictability seemed to hold sway, where every step was a leap into the unknown. As Alex ventured deeper into the forest, he began to notice something peculiar. The trees seemed to communicate with one another. Their bark rippled and shifted as if they were breathing, and their leaves quivered in response to some unseen presence. At first, Alex dismissed it as a trick of the imagination. But as the whispers grew louder, he couldn't deny the unsettling truth. One day, as he rested beneath the shade of a towering oak, a voice echoed in his mind, soft and melodic. It was a voice that seemed to come from the very heart of the forest, a voice that spoke of ancient knowledge and secrets buried in the depths of the earth. It was the voice of the ethereal witch who held dominion over the forest. "Welcome, traveler," the voice murmured, its tone as enchanting as it was eerie. "You have ventured into my domain, and now you are bound to the secrets of the forest." Alex, both fascinated and unnerved, responded cautiously. "Who are you? What is this place?" "I am the guardian of the ancient woods," the voice replied. "I am the one who whispers to the trees, and they, in turn, speak to you." As days turned into weeks, Alex's connection with the forest deepened. He learned to listen to the whispers of the trees, to understand their cryptic language. He realized that the forest was sentient, a living entity with thoughts and emotions of its own. The trees physically changed to reflect the witch's emotions, their bark shifting in patterns that conveyed joy, anger, or sorrow. But the forest held secrets, dark and ancient, that it was reluctant to reveal. It trapped Alex in its web, ensnaring him in its tendrils of enchantment. He soon found himself facing the witch's traps, vines that reached out to entangle him, roots that rose from the earth to trip him, and thickets that seemed to lead him in circles. The forest was a maze of deception, and Alex had to rely on his wits to navigate its treacherous paths. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the witch's motives were far from benign. Her whispers grew more insistent, urging him to stay, to become one with the forest, and to uncover the ancient power that lay hidden within. Alex's determination to escape the forest grew stronger with each passing day. He knew that the witch's enchantment was a double-edged sword, luring him with promises of knowledge and power while ensnaring him in a web of deceit. One fateful night, as the moon cast an eerie glow on the forest, Alex stumbled upon a clearing where the trees stood in a circle, their branches intertwined like a crown. In the center of the circle, he saw an ancient, gnarled tree, its bark pulsating with a mysterious energy. The witch's voice echoed in his mind once more, urging him to touch the ancient tree to unlock the forest's ancient secrets. But this time, Alex resisted. He had seen the forest's true nature, its power to manipulate and deceive, and he knew that the witch's promises were empty. With a final surge of determination, Alex turned away from the ancient tree and made his way back through the labyrinthine forest. The whispers grew fainter with each step, and the witch's voice faded into the distance. As he emerged from the forest, Alex realized that he had escaped the clutches of the ethereal witch in the sentient forest. He had learned the power of old magic, the ancient secrets that lay hidden in the depths of the wilderness. And he knew that the Forest of Whispers would forever be a place of mystery and danger, a place where the line between reality and enchantment blurred, and where man's struggle against nature's ancient power would continue for eternity. The Witch's Brew. In the heart of a quiet town, nestled amidst rolling hills and fading memories, there stood a decrepit old brewery with a history that whispered of witchcraft and mysticism. It was a place where the past bled into the present, and where the boundaries between the ordinary and the supernatural blurred. This was where Michael, a young entrepreneur with a bold vision, saw an opportunity to resurrect the brewery and breathe life back into its aging walls. The brewery had been abandoned for years, its doors sealed shut, its brewing equipment rusting away. But Michael saw potential where others saw decay. He had heard the tales of the brewery's mysterious past, of the spectral witch who was said to haunt its halls. To him, the stories were nothing more than folklore, and he believed that with a little hard work and a lot of innovation, he could turn the brewery into a thriving business. As Michael delved into the brewery's history, he stumbled upon a trove of old recipes, each one bearing the mark of the witch's influence. The recipes were unlike anything he had ever seen, strange, arcane concoctions with ingredients that bordered on the absurd. It was said that the witch had brewed beers with supernatural effects, each batch producing different, unpredictable outcomes. With a sense of excitement and curiosity, Michael decided to revive the witch's old recipe. He believed that the novelty of the supernatural brews would draw customers from far and wide, and he was eager to make a name for himself in the brewing world. Little did he know that he was about to unleash forces beyond his control. The brewery's grand reopening was met with great anticipation, and the townsfolk flocked to sample the supernatural brews. Each batch of beer had a different, uncanny effect. Some made people laugh uncontrollably, while others induced vivid hallucinations. There were beers that made people speak in rhymes, and even one that caused temporary invisibility. As word of the brewery's unique offerings spread, customers came from miles away to experience the strange and unpredictable effects of the witch's brews. The brewery became a sensation, and Michael's dream of success seemed within reach. But with each batch of beer, the supernatural effects grew more bizarre and unpredictable. It wasn't long before the townsfolk began to notice something unsettling. Those who had indulged in the witch's brews began to exhibit strange behaviors. Laughter turned into maniacal cackling. Hallucinations became nightmares, and invisibility came with a disturbing sense of detachment from reality. As the brewery's popularity soared, so did the chaos it unleashed. The once quiet town was now a place of unpredictable mayhem, and the townsfolk were growing increasingly alarmed. They began to suspect that the spectral witch, whose presence still seemed to linger in the brewery, was exacting her revenge. Michael, blinded by ambition and greed, refused to accept the truth. He was convinced that the brewery's success was worth the bizarre side effects of the witch's brews. But as the town descended into madness, he could no longer deny the consequences of his actions. Desperation drove Michael to confront the spectral witch, whose ethereal form appeared before him in a whirlwind of dark energy. She accused him of exploiting her recipes for profit, of desecrating the ancient craft of brewing with his greed. The witch's influence over the brewery had become undeniable, and Michael knew that he had to make amends for his folly. He pleaded with the witch to release the town from her supernatural grip, promising to stop brewing the cursed recipes and to honor her legacy in a more respectful way. The witch, her eyes filled with centuries of anger and sorrow, finally relented. She allowed the town to return to its former state, the supernatural effects of the brews fading away. Michael kept his promise, closing the brewery and vowing to preserve the witch's recipes as a tribute to her legacy, rather than as a means of profit. As the brewery's doors closed for the final time, the town breathed a sigh of relief. The witch's influence had been exorcised, and the town's sanity was slowly restored. Michael, chastened by his greed and the consequences of his actions, had learned a valuable lesson about the allure of forbidden knowledge and the dangers of seeking profit at any cost. The brewery's history would forever be a cautionary tale, a reminder that some secrets are better left buried, and that the pursuit of greed can have consequences beyond imagination. And as the sun set on the quiet town, the witch's legacy lived on, a reminder of the uncanny and the supernatural that would forever haunt its halls. The witch's heir. Emily had never set foot in the old, Gothic estate that now belonged to her. It was a place of mystery, hidden behind thick layers of ivy and dark secrets. The lawyer who had delivered the news of her inheritance had been hesitant, his voice tinged with unease. Little did she know that the estate held a lineage that would haunt her for the rest of her days. As she entered the estate for the first time, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The air was heavy with the weight of centuries, and the shadows seemed to cling to the walls like spectral fingers. It was a place where the past and present coexisted, a tapestry of secrets waiting to be unraveled. The estate was filled with family portraits, their eyes watching and their lips whispering the tales of generations gone by. Emily felt their gaze follow her as she moved through the dimly lit halls. The portraits seemed to hold the key to the estate's mysteries, but their secrets were locked behind layers of history and silence. It was only when Emily discovered an old, dusty journal hidden in the library that the truth began to unravel. The journal belonged to her ancestor, a woman named Isabella, who had been accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. Isabella's words spoke of ancient rituals, of a lineage of witches who had passed down their dark secrets from generation to generation. Emily's heart raced as she realized the implications of the journal's contents. She was the heir to a family of witches, a legacy of magic and darkness that had been kept hidden for centuries. She had inherited powers beyond her understanding, and with them, the burden of a family curse that had plagued her ancestors for generations. As Emily began to explore her newfound powers, she discovered that they were both a blessing and a curse. She could conjure the elements, control the minds of others, and even glimpse into the future. But with each spell she cast, she could feel the weight of the family curse growing stronger, like a dark cloud that threatened to consume her. The estate itself seemed to respond to Emily's powers. The walls whispered secrets, the shadows danced to her commands, and the family portraits watched her every move with a sinister curiosity. She could feel the presence of her ancestors, their spirits lingering in the very air she breathed. But the more Emily delved into her family's history, the more she realized the true nature of the family curse. It was a curse of greed and power, a thirst for magic that had driven her ancestors to commit unspeakable acts in the pursuit of their dark arts. Emily could feel the same dark hunger stirring within her, a temptation to use her powers for personal gain. One fateful night, as Emily attempted a powerful spell to unlock the secrets of the family portraits, she inadvertently triggered the curse. The estate shook with a malevolent force, and the family portraits came to life, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The spirits of her ancestors accused Emily of succumbing to the same greed and power that had plagued their own lives. They warned her that the curse could only be broken if she could resist the temptation to use her powers for personal gain and embrace her true identity as a witch. As the estate descended into chaos, Emily knew that she had to make a choice, to break the curse and embrace her legacy as a witch or succumb to the same dark fate that had befallen her ancestors. With every ounce of her will, she resisted the temptation, choosing to use her powers for good rather than personal gain. The curse's grip slowly began to weaken, the malevolent force receding like a retreating storm. The family portraits returned to their silent watch, their eyes no longer accusing. Emily had passed the test, and in doing so, had broken the curse that had haunted her family for centuries. As the estate settled into a newfound calm, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. She had embraced her legacy as a witch, but had also learned the importance of using her powers responsibly and for the greater good. The burden of her family's dark past would forever be a part of her, but she had chosen her own path, one that would lead her away from the shadows of the past and into the light of her own destiny. The Witch's Labyrinth. Lucas was known amongst his friends as an adventurous urban explorer, always seeking the thrill of the unknown. One day, he heard whispers of an abandoned park on the outskirts of town, a place rumored to hold a labyrinth that defied the laws of reality. Drawn by the promise of an otherworldly adventure, Lucas set out to find it. The park was a desolate place, overgrown with weeds and forgotten by time. At its center stood the labyrinth, a looming structure that seemed to shift and twist like a living thing. The entrance beckoned to Lucas, its dark passages promising an adventure like no other. As he ventured deeper into the labyrinth, Lucas realized that it was not like any maze he had ever encountered. The paths shifted and changed, leading him in circles and dead ends. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and the air was heavy with a sense of impending doom. Lucas pressed on, determined to unravel the mysteries of the labyrinth. But the more he explored, the more he began to feel a creeping sense of claustrophobia and disorientation. It was as if the very walls of the labyrinth were closing in on him, as if the air itself were becoming thick and oppressive. The labyrinth seemed to have a mind of its own, adapting to Lucas's fears and anxieties. It conjured illusions that blurred the line between reality and fantasy. Shadows danced in the corners of his vision, and eerie whispers echoed through the passages, their words too faint to comprehend. Each twist and turn of the labyrinth brought Lucas face to face with his deepest fears. He encountered phantoms from his past, reliving moments of regret and guilt. He was confronted by his own insecurities, his doubts and anxieties taking on physical form. But amidst the chaos and confusion, Lucas also found moments of clarity. He began to realize that the labyrinth was not just a physical challenge, but a psychological one as well. It was a journey of self-discovery, a mirror reflecting his innermost fears and desires. As Lucas ventured further into the labyrinth, he came to a chamber that seemed to defy the laws of reality. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, and at its center stood the illusionist witch who controlled the labyrinth. She was a spectral figure, her form ever shifting and elusive. The witch's eyes bore into Lucas's soul, and he could feel her probing his thoughts and fears. She revealed herself to be the architect of the labyrinth, a master of illusions who had lured him into her web. She offered him a choice, to confront his deepest fears and emerge stronger, or to succumb to the darkness and be lost forever. Lucas, determined to conquer the labyrinth, chose to face his fears head-on. The witch conjured illusions that challenged his very sanity, forcing him to confront the demons of his past and the shadows of his psyche. He battled phantoms and monsters, his courage and determination his only weapons. As the final confrontation with the witch drew near, the labyrinth seemed to collapse in on itself, the walls closing in around Lucas. It was a battle of wills, a struggle for survival in a place where reality and illusion merged into a surreal nightmare. In the end, Lucas emerged victorious, his mind and spirit stronger than ever before. The witch's illusions shattered like glass, and the labyrinth crumbled around him. He stood amidst the ruins, his heart pounding with triumph and relief. As Lucas left the labyrinth behind, he couldn't help but wonder if it had all been a test, a journey of self-discovery designed to push him to his limits and confront his deepest fears. The park and the labyrinth were abandoned once more, their secrets hidden from the world. Lucas returned to his friends with a newfound sense of purpose and a story to tell. He had ventured into the heart of the witch's labyrinth and emerged unscathed, a testament to the power of the human spirit to conquer even the most daunting of challenges. But as he looked back at the labyrinth one last time, he couldn't help but wonder if the witch still lingered in its shadows, her illusions waiting to ensnare the next unsuspecting soul who dared to enter. The journey of self-discovery was a path fraught with danger, and the labyrinth's secrets would forever remain a mystery, waiting to be unraveled by the brave and the curious. The Witch's Pact. In the heart of a modern city, where skyscrapers stretched to touch the sky and the hustle and bustle of daily life echoed through the streets, Detective Nora found herself facing a series of strange events that defied explanation. Her rational mind clashed with the supernatural mysteries that unfolded before her. It all began with a string of desperate individuals, each one making a pact with a mysterious figure. These individuals were driven to the brink of despair, their lives shattered by misfortune and tragedy. And in their darkest moments, they found themselves face to face with the enigmatic figure who offered them a way out. Nora's investigation led her to these individuals, each one bearing the weight of a pact made in desperation. They spoke of promises made in the dead of night, whispered words that carried an otherworldly power. In exchange for their souls, the mysterious figure granted them their heart's deepest desire. But the consequences of these pacts were unforeseen and dire. One man had wished for wealth, only to find himself drowning in a sea of endless greed, unable to stop accumulating wealth until it consumed him entirely. Another had wished for love, only to watch his loved ones wither away, their lives drained to sustain his own. As Nora delved deeper into the mystery, she began to uncover a pattern, a series of supernatural events that seemed to be linked to the pacts. The city itself seemed to come alive with a malevolent energy, its streets pulsing with an unnatural power. People reported seeing shadows that moved on their own, and strange symbols appeared on walls and sidewalks, like a language of the occult. Nora's rational mind struggled to make sense of it all. She searched for logical explanations, but the evidence pointed to something beyond the realm of science. It was as if the city itself had become a battleground between the forces of the unknown and the rational world. As Nora continued her investigation, she found herself face to face with the mysterious figure who orchestrated the Pact. Cloaked in shadow and shrouded in mystery, the figure revealed herself to be a witch, a practitioner of dark magic who had forged a connection with the desperate souls of the city. The witch spoke of a power beyond comprehension, a force that transcended the boundaries of science and reason. She had made pacts with the desperate to tap into this power, to harness its energy for her own purposes. And now, the city itself was paying the price. Nora confronted the witch, her rational mind warring with the supernatural forces that surrounded them. She demanded to know the witch's true intentions, to understand the purpose behind the pacts and the consequences they wrought. The witch's laughter echoed through the darkened alley where they stood. She spoke of a world where science and magic were intertwined, where the rational and the supernatural coexisted. She believed that the Pacts were a means to bridge the gap between these two worlds, to bring forth a new era of understanding and power. But as Nora looked into the witch's eyes, she saw a darkness that chilled her to the bone. The witch's true intentions were far from benevolent. She sought to unleash a force that would bring chaos and destruction to the city, a power that would blur the line between science and magic in ways that humanity could never comprehend. Nora knew that she had to stop the witch, to prevent her from achieving her dark goals. With determination and courage, she confronted the witch in a final, climactic battle, a clash of rationality and magic, of science and the supernatural. As they grappled with one another, the city itself seemed to shake with the intensity of their struggle. Shadows danced around them, and the symbols of the occult glowed with an eerie light. It was a battle for the soul of the city, a fight to preserve the boundaries between the rational and the unknown. In the end, Nora's determination and rational mind prevailed. She thwarted the witch's plans, breaking the pacts and severing the connection between the desperate souls and the dark magic that had ensnared them. The city was saved from the chaos that had threatened to consume it. But as the dust settled and the supernatural energies dissipated, Nora couldn't help but wonder about the thin line that separated science from magic, the rational from the supernatural. The witch's pact had shown her that the world was a place of mysteries beyond comprehension, where the boundaries between reality and the unknown were not as clear-cut as she had once believed. As she walked away from the scene, Detective Nora knew that the city held secrets that would forever remain hidden, that the blurring line between science and magic would continue to be a source of wonder and fear for those who dared to seek the truth.